What is subject to GST? Who can charge GST? Welcome to GST Malaysia. GST is charged on two things. One, any taxable supply of goods and services made in the course of doing business in Malaysia. Two, GST is also charged on the import of goods and services into Malaysia. Who can charge GST? GST is charged by a taxable person who is registered for GST with the Royal Malaysian Customs. All imported goods, except goods prescribed as zero rated and exempt, will be subject to GST. So importers take note. All taxable goods are subject to GST at 4%. GST on imported services is payable by the recipient of the services using the reverse charge mechanism. Who is a taxable person? Who is required to register for GST? A person includes an individual, sole proprietor, partnership, corporation, federal government, state government, statutory body, local or public authority, society, club, trade union, cooperative, joint venture, trustee, and any other body, organization, association, or group of persons, whether corporate or unincorporated. A taxable person is a person who is required to be registered under the GST Act. A person is a person who makes taxable supplies in Malaysia and whose annual turnover exceeds the proposed threshold of 500,000 ringgit. Such person is required to be registered under the GST Act. It is a mandatory registration. However, in some cases, a person is not required to be registered for GST, but he registers voluntarily for GST. He makes a voluntary registration. In this situation, he is also a taxable person. So in other words, when your taxable turnover reaches 500,000 ringgit, you become a taxable person. As a taxable person, it is mandatory for you to register for GST with the Royal Malaysian Customs. However, if your business turnover falls below 500,000 ringgit, but you are interested to register for GST, you can do so and you can make a voluntary registration. When you do that, you are also a taxable person and you will also be allowed to charge and collect GST. What is a taxable supply? A taxable supply means a supply of goods or services other than an exempt supply. A taxable supply is either a standard rated or a zero rated supply. A standard rated supply is subject to a positive tax rate, whereas a zero rated supply is subject to zero tax rate. At the moment, the standard rated supply tax rate is expected to be 4%. A zero rated supply is a taxable supply which is subject to a tax rate of 0%. The supplier does not collect any GST but is regarded as making a taxable supply and is eligible to claim GST incurred on inputs. An exempt supply is not a taxable supply. An exempt supplier cannot charge GST and therefore cannot claim refund of GST on inputs acquired. What is a business? A business that meets the threshold of the 500,000 ringgit must register for GST. But what is a business? A business must be predominantly concerned with making goods or providing services in return for a consideration. The consideration can be monetary or non-monetary. It is usually earnestly pursued and is pursued with reasonable continuity and is conducted in a regular manner and on sound, recognized business principles. A business includes anything done in connection with the commencement, termination, or intended termination of business, but excluding pre-incorporation. Examples of non-business activity are holding of shares, supply of services by employees under contract of employment, and hobbies. So if you hold shares, that's not the business activity. If you're an employee supplying services to your employer, that's not a business activity. If you're making some dolls as a hobby, that's not a business activity and you're not required to register for GST. However, the facilities and services provided by a club, association, management corporation, or other organization is treated as a business activity. The admission of persons to any premises for consideration is also regarded as a business activity. What are services? Examples of services are those provided by professionals such as lawyers and accountants. Made in Malaysia. A supply of goods or services must be made in Malaysia for GST to be chargeable. Goods shall be treated as supplied in Malaysia if the goods are in Malaysia or is removed from a place in Malaysia. Services are treated as supplied in Malaysia if the provider of the services belongs in Malaysia. GST is to be charged on a taxable supply of goods or services where the supply is made in Malaysia. Supplies not made in Malaysia are considered to be outside the scope of GST. In other words, goods and services made within Malaysia, in Malaysia, from Malaysia are chargeable for GST. Anything outside Malaysia is outside the scope of GST, but from outside into Malaysia is chargeable for GST. That's upon importation, as explained earlier. Thank you. For more information, please go to www.gstmalaysia.org. Thank you.